You press the gas, and there's this half second where nothing happens. Then, the car finally decides to go. No check engine light, no code, nothing a scanner will tell you, just a car that feels heavy and slow to wake up. Before you start throwing parts at that, there's a very good chance your throttle position sensor and your engine computer have simply stopped agreeing with each other, and there are 4 ways to fix that, ranging from free to almost free. Here's what you have to understand first, because everything else makes sense once you get this. Almost every car built in the last 20 years has no cable running from your pedal to the engine. Your accelerator pedal is a sensor. The throttle body has its own motor and its own position sensor. In between sits the ECU, playing translator, deciding how far to open that plate based on what your foot is telling it, and about a dozen other conditions. And that translation is learned, not fixed. Your computer stores what it believes is the closed throttle position, the fully open position, and the whole range in between. Over years, as carbon builds on the throttle plate and the sensor wears, those stored numbers drift away from reality. The computer keeps compensating a little more every year, until the pedal feel goes soft and lazy, and you can't point to a single thing that broke. Nothing broke, the map just went stale. Now, before you reset anything, do this one thing, because I've watched people wipe their adaptations 3 times in a row on a car that had an actual electrical fault. Plug in a scan tool that shows live data, and pull up your throttle position and accelerator pedal position values. Key on, engine off. Slowly press the pedal all the way down and watch the numbers climb. What you want to see is a smooth, steady sweep, usually from around half a volt at rest to somewhere around 4.5 volts at full travel, with no gaps. What you're hunting for is a dropout. If the voltage climbs smoothly and then suddenly falls to 0 for a fraction of a second before picking back up, that's a dead spot on the sensor track, and no reset in the world is fixing it. That sensor is worn out, and it needs to be replaced. Same story if the number jumps around wildly while you're holding the pedal perfectly still, and while you're there, wiggle the connector and the harness at the throttle body and watch the reading. If the number twitches when you move the wires, you don't have a sensor problem at all, you have a chafed wire or a corroded pin, and that's a much cheaper fix than the part everybody wants to sell you. Most cars also run 2 separate signals from the pedal for safety, so if your tool shows both, they should track together as a matched pair. If one lags behind the other, that's a fault, not an adaptation issue. Only once that sweep looks clean should you go resetting anything. Quick favor, before we get into the actual procedures, hit subscribe. It takes a second, and it genuinely helps. The cleanest method, if you have the tool, is a scanner reset. If you own or can borrow a scan tool that supports throttle or pedal reset functions, this is the most precise way to do it, because you're using the exact routine the manufacturer wrote, instead of tricking the system into relearning. Turn the engine off, find your OBD2 port near the steering column, usually tucked under the dash, and plug the tool in. Turn the key to the on position, but do not start the engine. Then go looking in the menus for throttle or pedal position settings. The naming is all over the place depending on the tool, so look for throttle, learn, pedal reset, TPS reset, or relearn. Follow whatever the screen tells you. It might ask you to confirm the engine is off, it might walk you through some pedal presses, or it might just want you to hit OK. When it finishes, start the engine and let it idle for 10 to 15 minutes so the system can settle. Some cars also want a short test drive to finish the learning process. No scan tool? There's a key on pedal method, and it costs nothing but 4 minutes. I'll be straight with you about this one, because you'll see it recommended everywhere as a universal fix, and it isn't. On plenty of newer cars, it does absolutely nothing. But on a lot of vehicles, it does work, it can't hurt anything, and it's worth trying before you go pulling battery cables. Park the car and shut it off. Put the key in and turn it to on without starting, so the dash lights come up. Now press the gas pedal all the way to the floor, slowly, taking about 3 or 4 seconds to get there. That slow travel is the whole point, because you're showing the computer the full sweep from the sensor. Hold it on the floor for 3 seconds. Then let it back up just as slowly, another 4 seconds or so, because releasing it fast makes the ECU read the position wrong. Repeat that press and release 2 or 3 times, which helps lock in the range and gets both the fully open and fully closed positions recorded. Turn the key off and wait 10 seconds for it to store the new position data. Then start it up and let it idle for a minute or two without touching the pedal at all while it calibrates. Where people go wrong with this one is starting the engine before finishing the sequence, stabbing the pedal too fast, or skipping the key off phase at the end. Do it slow, or don't bother. Now, if the key on method did nothing, or if you just replaced your battery and the car has been behaving strangely ever since, the battery disconnect method is where you go next. This one clears the ECU's adaptive memory entirely and forces it to relearn every sensor input from scratch, throttle position included. Park on level ground, set the parking brake, shut the engine down completely, and give the car a couple of minutes to let all the modules go to sleep. Pop the hood and find the battery. Depending on the car, you'll need a 10 or a 13mm wrench for the nut on the negative post, the one marked with a minus. Always take the negative cable off first. That's what safely kills the power. Loosen the nut just enough to pull the clamp free and lift it away carefully, and make absolutely sure that bare metal clamp doesn't touch the positive post or any part of the body, because a short there can take out modules that cost real money. Leave it disconnected at least 10 minutes, so the capacitors and modules fully drain, and pressing the brake pedal a few times during that wait helps bleed off residual current. This is also the perfect moment to clean any corrosion off the posts with a wire brush and some baking soda and water, since you're already in there. Here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part most people don't know to listen for. Reconnect the negative cable and snug the nut down properly, tight enough to hold, but not so tight you crack the post. Turn the key to the on position without starting the engine. Now go stand near the front of the car and listen carefully. You're going to hear a faint whirring or buzzing coming from the throttle body. That sound is the throttle motor physically driving the plate to its hard stops, finding its own minimum and maximum positions, teaching itself where closed actually is. On most cars, that whirring runs 2 to 5 minutes. On some newer ones, it can go on for 7. Do not rush it, and do not start the engine while it's still going, because interrupting that sweep is how you end up worse off than when you started. When the whirring stops and the engine bay goes quiet, turn the key off, pull it out, and wait another 30 seconds for the new values to write to memory. Then start the engine and let it idle a full 10 to 15 minutes without touching the gas pedal once. Don't run the air conditioning or the rear defroster during this either, because the extra electrical load changes the idle the computer is trying to learn. The idle may be rough at first, and that's completely normal. That's the ECU relearning in real time. After the idle period, shut it down, wait 10 seconds, restart, and take it out for a 10 or 15 minute drive at different speeds and loads to finish the job. That same procedure is your answer for stubborn codes too. If you're getting P120, P121, P122, or P123 coming back the moment you clear them, or you just installed a new or remanufactured throttle body, run the exact sequence I described, but check one thing first. Make sure your battery is healthy and reading at least 12.5 volts with the engine off, because a weak battery during a relearn causes brand new problems you didn't have before. Also, make sure the engine is fully cool, since you're going to have your hands in an engine bay. Now, let me tell you what a reset will not fix, because this is where I see the most wasted afternoons. Pulling the battery does not clean carbon out of your throttle body, it does not repair a broken wire, and it does not fix a vacuum leak. If you have a cracked intake hose letting unmetered air in, the computer will simply relearn around that leak, and you'll be right back where you started with a hunting idle. Fix the mechanical problem first, then reset, always in that order. And understand what a battery disconnect costs you on a modern car, because it isn't free. You lose your radio presets, and possibly need a security code to get the stereo working again. Your clock and trip data go. On a lot of cars, the power windows lose their auto-up function until you relearn them by holding the switch at the top and bottom of travel. Steering angle sensors, sunroofs, and seat memory can all need their own relearn. And here's the one nobody warns you about. You also wipe every good adaptation your car has learned about your transmission and your fuel trims, so expect the car to feel a little off for the first 100 miles or so while it rebuilds all of it. That's not damage, that's just the price of a clean slate. Once you've done all this, keep it. The reset gives you back a correct baseline, but if the throttle plate keeps loading up with carbon, you'll be doing this again next year. Cleaning it every 12,000 miles or once a year is the right rhythm. And sooner than that, if you notice the idle getting rough or the throttle going lazy again. But please listen to this part. Never clean a throttle body with carb cleaner, paint thinner, acetone, or gasoline. Modern throttle bores have special coatings on them, and there are sensitive sensors right there, and those solvents will permanently ruin both. Use a dedicated throttle body cleaner made to be gentle on coatings and plastics. A can runs you under $10, and it's good for several cleanings. Soft rag, no wire brush, and clean it before you do the reset so the computer learns the correct position on a clean plate. So, there's your ladder. Read the live data first to make sure you're not chasing a dead sensor or a bad wire. Use a scan tool if you have one, try the key on pedal sequence if you don't, and go to the battery disconnect with that whirring relearn when the simple stuff doesn't take. Fix leaks and wiring before you reset, not after. Then keep the throttle body clean so you're not back here in 6 months. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment with what your car is doing, whether it's a P121 that keeps coming back, a throttle that feels dead off the line, or fuel economy that fell off for no reason you can find. Tell me the year and the engine too, because somebody down there has fixed the exact same thing on the exact same car. Subscribe so you catch the next one, and I'll see you in the next video.